Hey, Smart Chiropractors. Welcome to the Smart Chiropractor Show and our featured guest segment. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Langmaid, and today I am happy to sit down with somebody that I call a friend now, Dr. Lynne Mouw. Lynne, thanks for taking some time and chatting with us.
Hey, Jeff. Good to see you.
Now, you are a chiropractor. You're the founder
Yes.
of, co-founder, I should say, with Dr. Mark of Mouw Family Chiropractic. You're also involved in UAC, a mastermind that both of
hmm
us are part of. You're a board member. I want to trace it back to the early years here. So many
Oh,
docs out there struggle with the mindset issues in and around a practice, which really determine the course of business. How did you initially become interested in personal development and mindset in your own life?
that's a great question. I can trace it back, honestly, to chiropractic school. I came into chiropractic with just, I wasn't a legacy. I didn't have family members or even was really adjusted before I went to chiropractic school. So I have this unique story where I just fell into, I heard the big idea before I went to school, and someone explained it to me, and they must have done a good job because I said, "Oh my gosh, whatever that is, I want to do that. I want to go and be that." So I got my first adjustment in chiropractic school. I mean, came in very green. And so, all of this stuff was so new to me. I was just really trying to soak up the philosophy. I was trying to learn how to adjust. And I kept hearing, these speakers at school. We had the benefit at the time, I went to Palmer Davenport back in the early 90s, or late 90s, I should say. And, there were some really great speakers around, and they would just talk about mindset. And I knew, I wanted to get off on the best foot possible. And so I thought, well, if these guys are doing it and they're successful, then there's something to this, and I need to pay attention and learn. And so I can really trace it back to that. And then coming out of school, when you're building a practice, there's a lot of highs and lows until you figure out what works and you tweak it enough to where you can hopefully sustain it at that, level that you want to grow to. And during those highs and lows, it would always come back. I would look at my husband and I would just say, we're down again, or this is happening, or I don't like this trend, and what is going on? And, we always traced it back to where our minds were. And when we had that conclusion, it was crazy because we would have the heart to heart, the come to Jesus moment, so to speak. And we would agree on that. And then we would get it in our mind. And then the very next day, just things would happen. It was like that energy got shifted in the right direction. We were facing the world together again, and we were going to go out and just, go out with the right mindset, and the phone would ring and patients would resurface. And so it was almost like you have to get this right first, and then all else can come in line.
There's no doubt about that, and really maintaining that positivity throughout. It's funny how the universe works, right? You
Yeah.
put that energy out there
Yeah.
and you start to see it come back on a practical basis as you look at your career. And I know you have a variety of interests. When you take the attributes of maintaining a positive mindset and what you've seen in
Hmm.
practice, are you a book reader? Are you an audio, file? How do you go about practically implementing this in your day?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I have to talk about my husband and I also have a business called Align Teams, where we help doctors and teams with strengths-based work and learning how they're hardwired. And so when you ask about attributes, I have to go back to that work that we've done it. And anyone can take that assessment. It's through the Gallup organization. And we look at that, and there are certain attributes that we're all wired with. And, Jeff, you and I have some similarities, but we have some things very different. And I think knowing that information is so beneficial to accepting and then growing in those attributes. So there are some people, and I could name, you guys probably know those people in your life too, that are just naturally effervescent and bubbly, and they walk into a room and they're the life of the party. That's the positivity trait. There's an actual talent that Gallup identified that's called positivity. And I do not have that. So naturally very high. And so my attributes I've had to learn on, knowing my strengths and then leaning into that and developing that. So I would say yes, to answer your question. I love to learn. I'm a voracious learner. So I've been able to take that and, channel that into whether it's learning digital marketing or, team engagement and all the things that come along with building your team. And I would say that I'm also naturally just less on the people side. I'm more intellectual and more on the backside. And, at times that's been a blessing and a curse. I've now come to accept it and embrace it and make it work for me. And then, thankfully on the other side, my husband tends to happen, right? It's a yin and yang situation. So he would be Mr. Positive and, that person that walks into the room is the extroverted person. And I think we balance each other really well. And it's been helpful to know that about each other so that we can accept that and just help each other grow.
There's no question about that. And you bring up a great point that I'd love to dig a little bit deeper and explore. And that's around understanding the strengths of your team. As a doc, as a business owner, we can be as positive as we want. However, we can have the right mindset, and that plays a huge role. However, we still need to identify, hey, we're part of a team as this practice builds, grows, and develops. And so many docs out there are totally blind to any of the attributes of their team. Yes. They're like, this seems like a nice person. I guess that's a good fit. How have you seen understanding the strengths and potentially those areas of weakness or opportunity within a team member? How have you seen that play out? What should docs know in terms of the power of understanding that information?
Yes, that's such a great question. So I'll go back to use the couple example. So when we first meet our significant other, usually we're attracted to something in them that we can just innately sense is very different. We say opposites attract, right? And we fall in love for those reasons because it's almost like together we complete each other. But then years down the road, the day-to-day, the minutia, all the problems with kids and work, and we begin to project on each other our way of seeing the world and filtering the way things are done. And then it becomes, well, you don't do it this way, or you should do it this way. And we forget and lose and to honor those distinct differences. And so I think the same thing happens in chiropractic teams. Chiropractors hire on gut, right? Most of us are just warm, fuzzy, heart-loving people. And we'll get a feel for people and we'll think that's going to work out great because they're like me, or maybe they do sense those differences. But if you don't go into that relationship with eyes wide open, what happens is we then again project those differences. And on a team, differences are absolutely 100% advantages. We would love to have a full complement of all of those talents on our team. Of course, it may not look that way, but in knowing what those attributes are, it's such power to being able to help people develop in their role, be the best of what they are, and then know if they're in the right position. Stephen Franson, I love this quote. He always says, get the right person in the right role, doing the right job at the right time. Right. So.
Yeah, that's a take-home quote there. I would say that is impactful and so powerful when a doc actually stops to think about that and how it impacts their team. Now, as far as a relationship, I'm curious if you've been tapping into the cameras around my house, because you described exactly a lot of what occurs day in and day out.
So I've worked with a lot of chiropractic couples. So my husband and I, we've found out how all of these things through scar tissue. We've been partners in business and in life for 20 years and almost 20 years in business. And it isn't, always a piece of cake. It takes work, but really we get asked all the time because I like to think that we just, in working together, we still have this great friendship and a great romance. And I would credit so many things, but one of the most important has been just learning how we're hardwired, seeing each other, especially going through those hard times. It can be really important.
I agree. And it starts with being aware. And I'm going to encourage everybody listening and watching, if you have never gone through and really identified for yourself personally, and maybe for your spouse, certainly, and definitely for your team as well, really sat down and gone through a exercise in identifying strengths and seeing where other people are coming from, it can just make a world of difference in your practice, in your personal life. And Lynn, you're a great testament to that. And I've learned a lot from you as I've gone through some of those processes over the last few years. And you're unquestionably an expert at really taking that information, making it digestible and actionable, which is so important for docs out there. But I want to switch gears a little bit.
Yes.
Even though this ties into strengths, it also ties into mindset. But one of the ways that we had connected as well was through a mastermind group called UAC. And for many docs out there, they might feel isolated, either maybe on purpose as they're a little bit more introverted, or on accident, just because chiropractic tends to be it can be a little bit siloing. As you've experienced contributing to and being a board member on a high-level mastermind, what are some of the benefits that you've experienced personally and or in business as a result of it?
Yeah, that's such a great question. We joined this group about 10 years ago now. And where do I even start with this? Because it is true. Like to your point, with chiropractors in particular, we're lone wolves, right? We're always swimming upstream. We do things counterculture anyway. And then when you get somebody in chiropractic who's become successful or has reached a level that's uncommon, you tend to get there and like look around and just feel very isolated, like you said. And that was what we were experiencing about 10 years ago. We had on paper the things that looked great, but we were, quite frankly, outside of ourselves. We were okay, but outside of ourselves, we were lonely. And not only that, we thought, what's next? You reach a level in practice and, it's reached your goals, and that we have to have goals to be able to know what's the next point, where are we jumping to? So we joined the group. And in UAC, we talk about the 4 pillars. So the 4 things that are important and why you want to be in our group. And it met all of our needs, and I'll explain what those are. The first is mission. So most of us are on a mission to make the world a better place, or to, elevate chiropractic, whatever it might be for you. We're mostly all mission based in that group. And then we also have purpose. Family. So this has been important for us because our kids now, especially going through the pandemic, we really saw how easily our kids could be isolated. We were so fortunate. We live here in the Midwest, but friends of ours, and I know, people in some of those states, their kids had to get separated out of class, made to feel different. And so within this mastermind, we now get kids together where they can be growing up in this great lifestyle. And we have people in that group that are from all walks of chiropractic. It isn't like, I want to set that straight. It's not like a strict philosophical group. It really isn't. We've got functional doctors. We've got franchise owners. We've got people who do supplements or software. Very different, walks of life, like I said. But we come together with a common purpose where we are interested in businesses that serve chiropractic and beyond chiropractic. We want to have that masterminding, that access to people who are doing big things, that are changing the profession, that have big ideas, so we can collaborate. And then we have some fun too, right? We need that as well. Most of us are high achieving, busy people. And when you're, whatever stage of practice you're in, life gets very repetitive, and we're doing things every day, so we get to go step out of that life, do a reset, think big. So it's not just all fun, it's intentional, and walk away from those weekends with just great ideas, and knowing and networking with great people, so that we can all grow.
Well said. That has been my experience for sure. It really is, it sets things apart. It's an opportunity to connect with people, to build those connections, as you said, professionally, and the family aspect of it as well, and really be able to, whatever your next step is, have a support system that can help you achieve it. For docs that may be out there, and I was certainly in this boat, years ago, never having been to a mastermind. What the heck do you do? What's the process? All of that. Could you explain just behind the scenes of I know that it varies, but what's a typical weekend look like? What are the goals and objectives? What are the activities?
Yeah. And just for somebody who's out there that thinks, gosh, that sounds great, I need that. The first thing I want to say is everybody in that room, whether or not they're, they own 120 clinics, or somebody who's got a large scale practice, or somebody who is a functional medicine doctor that's, invented something, or just your, regular chiropractor in our group. Everybody is very humble and gracious. So it's not a room about getting in and beating your chest. Would you agree, Jeff?
I would
it's
agree.
Really just about how do we all ships rise with the tide, right? So how do we raise the waters? So to go about that, we do have it is a members an invite only group. We are careful to curate the people in that room, because when you do come in, we're tapping into the genius in the room. So Jeff, you have so much to share about all of the things that you do with Smart Chiropractor. I mean, some of the things that come to mind where your zone of genius would be in just technology, and you can speak to that more than I can, but I know I have things to learn from you on that. And so it's a very collaborative environment when we come in for the weekend. We do invite some speakers in. Generally, they're from outside of chiropractic. Sometimes not. But we have had a CFO of a publicly traded billion-dollar company. We've had people that own public relations firms. Generally, it's always around chiropractic and business in some format. And we share those, we have those speakers, but then we also get together and collaborate, and great ideas just come out of conversations.
I have found it to be incredibly valuable, again, to build connection to, as you said, open yourself up to how other successful individuals within and around our profession are doing things is just incredibly impactful, especially when you're able to then bring that back to your practice, and to have that curated environment is wonderful, because that everybody there, we might have different goals, but we're on the same page, and we're there to help and support each other each and every step of the way. As you look forward through the rest of this year into next year within UAC and the Mastermind Group, what are you excited about? What gets you jazzed? What's on the agenda?
Well, we're going to the Kentucky Derby in May. So that's a bucket list trip. Well, once a year, we'll have a bucket list opportunity for members to come together and do something that's out of the ordinary and rarefied, I guess. And so I'm very excited about that. We have a family event coming up in Santa Fe that will be sure to be, we'll have, last year we did a whole kids program where they did hike and they talked about mindset, and they came back down off of the mountain and had, their core values discussion, and just really cool to see them kind of, looking around and going, okay, my parents aren't crazy. Other people live this way. So I'm excited about those things. One of the things that I think is also really important is our accountability groups. And just to go back to something you just said, it's so difficult. I found it a bit overwhelming to explain the tangible effects of this group. But all I can say is, to your point, when you go and put yourself in that space and open up to the possibilities, that is where, the synergistic, magical almost quality can come out of just being with people who are like-minded. And so I'm just excited to do more of that.
I could not agree more. And as we're getting towards the back end of our conversation, let's touch on the practice a little bit, because you and Mark have an incredibly successful practice, and you've taken time to build, grow, and develop. You have associates that practice there. Perhaps give a little bit of insight into what does Mouw Family Chiropractic look like and feel like?
That's great. It's our first baby, obviously. And it now, I'm so proud to see where it is today. It's morphed into something where it was just Mark and I literally did, I tend to be more COO, even though I am a chiropractor. I've always preferred the operational side of things. So I would gravitate to that side, and he obviously was in clinical care. But I mean, I remember just at the early days, just handling all the positions, and he was doing his thing. And then, we started to hire and grow a team. We've had over 14 associates, these last 4 that we've had. So one of the things I have to give a shout out to is Chiro Matchmakers, which I'm not sure if you've talked about it on this show, but it's really helped us to be able to zone in on, again, it's blood typing, right? So what we talked about with strengths, helping to find the doctors that will be in our office that can stay long-term and have a long-term plan with us. So the last 4 doctors that we've had and hired have been with us at least, I think the youngest has been around 4 years and the oldest has been around 11. And so it's definitely all ages. It's babies and grandparents, and we have a very open, dynamic, interactive environment that we enjoy just because of the energy that comes from that. And then we have a team that comes around us and helps us make sure we serve these people to the fullest every day.
That is what I saw. I'm fortunate enough to come out, and I've been in the practice, and it's world class. You and Mark have done a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Building a great team, building and curating a fantastic group of individuals who you can call, patients, which is one of the most important things I think out there, is to be fulfilled when you show up and connect with those ideal patients. And a lot of what we spoke about today, identifying strengths on your team, understanding mindset, connecting with others, and seeing what's possible, all becomes a reflection of what you see day in and day out in the practice. And for those docs listening that would love to learn more about how you might be able to work with their team, and also then about UAC, where would you direct them?
Yes. So go to uacchiro.com is the site, and in Google, just UAC Chiropractic, it'll come up. Number 1, we have a short application, some questions on there, fill it out. You'll talk to a board member, maybe somebody just like me, and we'd love to get to know you and welcome you into our tribe. And I mean, that's what's so great about the UAC, is whether it's an event or whether it's an accountability group meeting, it's so dependent on the people and the quality of the people, and you can never dip your toe in the same river twice, that old saying. And it just looks different every time. But I think they keep getting better and better for me. So.
I feel the same way. And before we get on, I want to make sure that that you touch on the team aspects of what you're up to. If the doc wants to connect with you and learn more about how they can identify the strengths of their team, which I'm going to recommend everybody listening and watching does, where should they head to?
Yes, it's such a passion of mine because of how impactful I've seen it in all of our biggest problems are people problems usually. So it's a helpful piece for that. So you can just DM me on Instagram. My name is Mouw4082. I don't know if you have a chat box. I can list something in there, or you can just email me at lynn@alignedteams.com.
Great. We will be sure to drop those links in the show notes and down below. Lynn, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, sharing. I think it has opened many, many listeners' minds to a new way to think about how to approach their practice and their team, and also how they can take steps to think bigger and have that become a reflection of what they see in their practice day in and day out. Thank you so much for taking the time today.
Thank you so much. Love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this video on the Smart Chiropractor. To not miss a single thing that's clinically oriented, marketing oriented, or more, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel today.